A top story this evening on Up South is from Bengaluru. In fact, 1,000 people have died because of swine flu in the country in the last 3 months. But this patient in a Bengaluru hospital died not only because of his medical condition, but because the power supply to the hospital tripped while he was on the ventilator. Pratibha Raman reports from Bengaluru.
When the lights went off on the 20th of February at the Rajiv Gandhi Institute for Chest Diseases in Bengaluru, tragedy struck. The light went out of BG Ganesh's life because the ventilator that he was on did not get power. The 53-year-old auto consultant could not be saved.
ನೈಟ್ ಇದ್ದಕ್ಕಿದ್ದಂಗೆ ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಹೋಯ್ತು ಎರಡೂವರೆಲಿ ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಹೋಯ್ತು ಸರ್. ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಹೋದಾಗ ಅವ್ರು ಏನು ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆನೇ ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್. ಏನೋ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಮಾಡಿದರೆ ನನ್ನ ಗಂಡ ಉಳ್ಕೊಂತಿದ್ನಲ್ಲ ಸರ್. ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ 6 ಗಂಟೆವರೆಗೂ ಕರೆಂಟ್ 4:15 ಸತ್ರು ಅಂತ ಸುದ್ದಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಸರ್. ಏನಾರ ಒಂದು ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಆಗ್ತಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್. ಜನರೇಟರು ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ, UPS ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್.
The hospital authorities claimed that the generator was switched on immediately, but that it was only this particular block where Ganesh was admitted wherein there was no power due to technical snag.
I gave instruction to the nurse that if there is a delay in getting the current, what you do is you can shift the case from MICU to surgical ICU, which is here in this block. That's what we gave. Then they said, no sir, we are ventilated, patient has become bad only. As you know, since now we are hand ventilation only, we are doing that, but patient condition is bad.
The Department of Medical Education has ordered an inquiry.
ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇದಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಇವತ್ತಿನ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲೇ ಒಂದು ಡಿಸೀಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಬಂದಿದೆ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆ ಇದೆ. ಬೇರೆ ರಾಜ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಕಂಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ನಾವು ಕಡೆ ಏನಲ್ಲ, ವಿ ಆರ್ ಟ್ರೈ ಟು ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್.
With Pratibha Raman in Bengaluru, Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
Joining me now from the Rajiv Gandhi Institute for Chest Diseases is the director of the hospital, Dr. Shashidhar Buggi. Sir, do you realize that your hospital has blood on its hand because this is irresponsibility and lack of care at its very worst? What do you have to tell to the family which has lost a near and dear one?
No, this patient was serious and he was on ventilator. Patient had become serious in the previous afternoon itself. That's why patient was on ventilator. As you are aware, H1N1 patient with bilateral pneumonia, this is one of the common cause of death. This is what is happening. So in this patient also, patient was bad. He was on ventilator. In spite of on ventilator, his oxygen saturation was not maintained well. Only at that time, there was a short period when the current, there was some local problem in that area. For a short period, the electric shed one was there. It is not in the entire campus because there was current was there in the surgical ICU, in other blocks also. But the arrangements were made. Patient did not die due to any lack of this one. Because as you are aware that every ventilator, there is a backup battery will be there in the ventilator itself. And also I instructed them, if there is a delay in getting the current, I wanted to shift the patient from the MICU to surgical ICU. So all these arrangements were made. Because the patient was bad since afternoon itself, patient died due to his H1N1 complication, that is pneumonia, not due to any of the mechanical failures.
Right. Dr. Buggi, the family obviously has a version which is different from yours. They are obviously saying that there was a power cut, the ventilation was not there, and hand ventilation was provided initially. What steps are you taking to ensure that something like this does not happen ever again?
No, steps have been taken. The fact that there is no question of, see, whenever any mechanical ventilation, some of the problems will be there. That is why in every ward, ICU, we have for doing hand ventilation, there will be hand ventilation equipments will be there. And all these things are regularly being done by our nurses and doctors. So that these things are quite common. But only thing is, I feel sorry that these patients attenders who were there at that time, because there was no current, whatever the scientific way we manage these cases during such odd hours, the common man will not understand.
Definitely, Dr. Bugi, is an extremely sad story coming there from your hospital there in Bengaluru, and we also feel very sorry for the family which has lost a near and dear one. Thanks a lot for joining us on Up South. News now from Chennai. The BCCI now has a completely new look. A new president in Jagmohan Dalmia, who was elected unopposed. Also a new secretary in Anurag Thakur, and Anirudh Chaudhary, who takes over as the new treasurer of the BCCI.
Mr. Jagmohan Dalmia has been elected as the president. Mr. Anurag Thakur is the secretary. I have been elected as the treasurer. Mr. Amitabh Chaudhary as the joint secretary, and Mr. Srinivasan is the nominee of the BCCI to the International Cricket Council.
From Chennai is my colleague Rasesh Mandani, who has been tracking that crucial BCCI meet. Rasesh, in Chennai, obviously we have to talk about the Chennai Super King N. Srinivasan, who has lost his clout within the BCCI, but he has managed to retain his place in the ICC. Now, was this preceded by some heavy-duty give and take within the BCCI?
Look, I think initially the understanding was that there is an arrangement that Srinivasan allowed Dalmia to become the president, and in exchange Srinivasan be allowed to continue at the ICC. But the sense one gets now, speaking to various people who've been elected, is that that may well not be the case. For the moment, Srinivasan continues to be the BCCI's ICC representative, but that is still September. People like Anurag Thakur, people like Sharad Pawar are willing to say on record to say that. So, you know, that's the way things stand. Also, some of the other decisions that have been taken, remember the two important positions in the BCCI are the president and the secretary, and they are no more with the Srinivasan camp. Dalmia may not be Sharad Pawar's man, but he's certainly not a Srinivasan man either. He's his own man, and he understands that he had the clout to win the president election, and he's tried to send the message across that he's won on the weight of the East Zone vote that he's always enjoyed. And then Anurag Thakur then coming out and saying that this is a 6-month arrangement is also an indicator. So I think the sense one gets overall is that while Srinivasan may have got a lot of his men elected to victorious positions, he does not anymore enjoy the sort of power that he once did, and there is a lot of opposition, which was quite evident from some of the decisions that we've seen so far.
Right, Rasesh Mandani, thanks a lot for joining us there from Chennai. Staying with news from Tamil Nadu. Now, 2 months back, Perumal Murugan, the author, had said that he would discontinue writing because of opposition to his kind of writing from different groups in Tamil Nadu. Now, in the same state, it's the turn of another author, Puliyar Murugesan, who was kidnapped and attacked by a group of 25 people. He's now recovering at a hospital in Tanjavur, and he's also been slapped with an obscenity charge under Section 292 of the IPC. His wife and children have fled their village in Karur, and like in Murugan's case, it is a Gaunter community that has taken offense to Murugesan's writing. A special team has also been formed to arrest those who attacked Murugesan. Joining me now from Chennai, senior journalist T.N. Gopalan. Mr. Gopalan, after Perumal Murugan, another author coming in under attack exposes the intolerant face of Tamil Nadu. Do you see incidents like these ringing the death knell of fearless writing in Tamil literature?
It is happening right across the state, right across all communities, all religion. Some section or other, everywhere, almost everywhere, choose to get offended over this or that. There is no rationale. Nobody can talk sense into them. It's not exactly people are getting offended on genuine grounds or fake grounds. It is simply that there are vested interests to exploit such situations. Like you say something which is considered derogatory, demeaning of someone, then you can definitely expect some stupid outfit coming up and crying foul, and some ruffian mob will gather behind him. The situation is getting pretty difficult,
Right, Shisha Reddy, my colleague, also joins me from Chennai. Shisha, what has the police done in this case? There we heard Mr. Gopalan actually describing the kind of situation that is prevailing in many parts of Tamil Nadu and the threats meted out to such authors.
Well, exactly, Suri. In this case, this particular case, the police have been in talks with the experts and that's when they have registered a case. And, you know, the sections you have also been mentioning, you know, this is look like a pattern, because in the past also when Perumal Murugan case happened, the district administration and the police are the ones who actually went ahead in this particular case. So this time they wanted to downplay it and make sure that, you know, they don't make some sort of an allegation, something that happened in Perumal Murugan's case. So this time, yes, of course, with the district administration, with the police working together, and they have put these 5 sections under the IPC, you know, stating different ways of why this author had actually indulged himself in making such derogatory statements against the women in the community that they have been talking about.
Right. Mr. Gopalan, though the police has registered a case, precious little has been done. What would you like to tell to the state government and the state chief minister, given the fact that Perumal Murugan has already moved out of Chennai, quite a distraught man?
I can only say, please step down. If you can't restore law and order, if you can't uphold the law and order, if you can't uphold the right to freedom of expression, you better step down. You have no business to be there. Well, it is empty rhetoric, I know. Nothing is going to happen. The civil society is becoming moribund. I mean, there are some outfits here and there protesting. But the government of the day is certainly hand in glove with these vested interests. So I don't see any easy way out.
Right. Shisha Reddy and T.N. Gopalan, thanks a lot for joining us there from Chennai on this particular story. Now, the union budget was presented on Saturday, and ever since, Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu has been extremely annoyed, very unhappy at the kind of budgetary allocations which have been made for his state, which is already a cash-strapped state. In fact, he was banking on generous central funds to fund the new capital and also different development and welfare schemes. Naidu has made his displeasure towards the budget pretty clear, calling it injustice to Andhra Pradesh. But the NDA government does not think so.
I don't know, you ask them. There are some incentives they are given. Even all these incentives are not sufficient to build that state, because Finance Commission has given a report, even after 5 years, even after devolution and also revenue gap allocation also, on the end of 5th year, Andhra Pradesh will be in revenue deficit. That is the situation. All other states are having revenue surplus except Andhra Pradesh. Never they aspired for separate state. It is forced on them.
मेरे ख्याल से फाइनेंस कमीशन और बजट एलोकेशन दोनों को मिला के देखना चाहिए. दोनों को मिला के देखे तो आंध्र प्रदेश को काफी पैसा मिला है. ये सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट का असेसमेंट है, फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर का भी कहना है. इसका गहराई से अध्ययन करना है. अध्ययन करके कोई कमियां है तो कमियां को दूर करने के लिए केंद्र सरकार हमेशा तैयार है. उसी दिशा में हम लोग सोच रहे काम करेंगे. मैंने मुख्यमंत्री जी को भी कहा, आप वित्त मंत्री से बात करिए, जरूरत पड़े तो प्रधानमंत्री से बात करिए. मगर ये गलत है कि आंध्र प्रदेश के साथ भेदभाव हुआ, कोई जस्टिस हुआ नहीं. ऐसा जितना वो लोग एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हैं उतना नहीं मिला, मैं स्वीकार करता हूं. कारण क्या है, केंद्र के पास कितना पैसा है, जितना आटा उतना रोटी. उसी पैसा में सभी स्टेट्स को, सभी रीजन्स को, सभी विभागों को, सभी संस्थाओं को पैसा देना एक केंद्र सरकार का काम.
Congress leader C. Ramachandraya, also Dr. Parakala Prabhakar, communications advisor to the Andhra Pradesh government. Mr. Ramachandraya, the people of Andhra Pradesh hold the Congress responsible for the messy division of Andhra Pradesh. Now, do you think the BJP is adding to the problem by not helping this cash deficit state?
Yeah, first thing is that it is not, AP is not at the mercy of the party in power at center. It is the act which has made in the parliament, which is obligatory on the part of the government of India constitutionally to implement it. In addition to it, whatever the Prime Minister has announced on the floor of the House, it is more than an act. He is the Prime Minister of a sovereign country like India. So it also binds the government. Now they are extending all very small reasons, I should say flimsy reasons, that AP is not eligible to be qualified for special status. Why can't, when it is virtually in financial doldrums and it is unable to create the infrastructure to attract the entrepreneurs, how can we improve our revenues?
Dr. Parakala Prabhakar, the version on the street is that all said and done, the Telugu Desam is also represented in the NDA government. You have 2 ministers there in New Delhi. Why wasn't Andhra Pradesh case effectively put forth before the budget was made?
Sudhir Garu, we expected a helping hand, mainly to see that, we are on a level playing field. Because the way the division was done very unscientifically, and Andhra Pradesh is at a very disadvantageous position. Because you see, we are located, on the one hand, on the one side you have Hyderabad, then you have Chennai, and then you have Bangalore. Now, all these 3 cities and the cities and the states that are hosting these cities are, they have a very sound ecosystem as far as the investments and infrastructure and other things are concerned. Now, if we don't get enough help to achieve a level playing field, Andhra Pradesh will not be able to, stand up and run and, contribute to the economy of the country. This is what we have been saying. Leave alone the ministers and other people who are in the cabinet, and, the BJP ministers are in our cabinet and our ministers are in the union cabinet. Leave alone that. The chief minister himself had gone to Delhi several times, met the prime minister, met the finance minister, met several ministers, and we've made all our plea. So we are at a loss to understand why the commitments that were given by the union government on the floor of the House and in the AP Reorganization Act 2014, why are they not fulfilled? Why are there are no enough signals that they are willing and coming forward to help Andhra Pradesh state? It's just, we're not asking something which is out of the way. We are asking those promises that were made on the floor of the House and in the Act to be fulfilled. That's all.
Right. This is going to be definitely a contentious issue, and we will see how the TDP reacts to the BJP in the days and weeks to come. Dr.